I just want to thank everybody for coming back. I know it's a beautiful day. It's probably hard to come back in here and see this neat little room, but anyway, so we have two speakers tonight, and our first speaker is going to be Flynn, your last name? Hulver? Hulver, I'm sorry. I've messed up the name. I thought it was the other guy, and I've done all kinds of nasty things today, so I'm horrible. But before we get started, we were just going to talk a little bit about the business plan and some of the things that we passed out last week, which could be daunting. I think the conversation over the week was if I had those things given to me, I'd just sit down and cry. And you look at this business plan, and you're looking, you said it, yeah, absolutely. The business plan for this, Lorraine, can you see me?
Yes, you can.
Okay, all right. All of a sudden I realized I was standing way up front. The business plan for this competition is not like a business plan that you're going to send to the bank or the one that you're going to build your business from and hold it to your, to the line. This is sort of a summary business plan. This is going to be something that's going to be a few pages. We gave you some handouts about the business plan outline and then some of the requirements and some of the things about that. So we want you to get hung up. I got to move back again. I'm sorry. Hung up on looking at this thing. It's going to be 25 pages or something like that. The thing that Leslie gave you is a thing called the business plan outline. I think I gave you something last week about it outline, but really looking at a summary view of it and trying to understand what the judges are going to be looking for in that business plan. And part of what we gave you when we first started was this kind of thing. We talked about the grading of it and all that stuff, and talking about the executive summary and the point system for that, and some of the models, things, and then market analysis, market, how you go to market, those things, as well as your timelines and some of the other things. Again, this is a summary. This wouldn't be something I would take to the bank. If you get to go to the bank and you're going to borrow money, it's a total different thing. And I think I might have mentioned that a little bit. And that's when you do need that book that I gave you last time. But anyway, with that all said, is there any questions about last week that went over that Mike had brought up and things like that? Were there things that you thought about last week that might have, this week you thought of something else that we can kind of go over and think about? Anything, or everybody was totally clear? All right. So anyway, let's get started. We're going to talk to Flynn, and I'll give you a little cover on his bio. Flynn's been in the insurance game. Oh, it's not a game, it's a business. I'm sorry. I'm going to mess him up all over the place. Insurance business since 2000. Well, you see him perk his head up when I said it was a game? Anyway, I'm sorry. He's been in the insurance business since until 2000. His career began at Allstate Insurance. After 1 year, he was hired as an independent agent where he started to focus on helping businesses with their insurance needs. Shortly afterward, he started his own agency, Woodstock Insurance Agency, where he built his book of business and operated it for 12 years. In 2013, Woodstock Insurance Agency was acquired by LD&B Insurance and Financial Services, where he currently works today. In 2014, Flynn earned the national designation of Accredited Advisor of Insurance. I think we're very privileged to have Flynn with us tonight, and I think he's going to give you some very important things about insurance. A lot of time, people don't think of their insurance agent as part of their team, but they're really there to keep you out of trouble and make sure that you're covered so that you can. I think my thing is so that you can sleep at night. And when you have a business, you got a lot of other things that are going to keep you up. You don't need to worry about that piece. So with that, Flynn, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. Insurance, everyone's favorite topic, right? No one understands it, but when your building burns down, we're the first person you call, besides the fire department. That should be the first person. A little bit about LD&B, independent agency. We're employee-owned. We provide property and casualty, full suite of insurance benefits. LD&B's been in business since 1972. Mission statement, we provide insurance and financial solutions with the ultimate goal of making a contribution in the community we serve. We are very community focused. Every year we give 10% of our gross profits back to our community. Before anyone takes a dime in our firm, we give to the community first. So that's something we are very, very proud of. All right, let's get into some of the nuts and bolts and some things that will probably apply to most, if not all of you guys, as you're starting your business. Property and casualty insurance. It's property insurance that covers your physical location of the business, whether it be owned, rented, or leased. It's going to cover your contents from fire, theft, flood, earthquake. Flood could be questionable. That would be maybe a second policy that you might have to take into consideration, so you make sure you always ask if you're in a flood-prone area. Casualty, you'll see that next to property. That's basically the liability side of your policy. So you're going to see that come in tandem. So when you're getting your basic general liability policy, it's going to say property and casualty. Some of you might be doing delivery. You'll have feedback. If you're doing delivery services, or you're running basic errands, you may need a commercial auto policy. That'll be something that's very important if you maybe have your just personal vehicle and you're thinking you can say, okay, Joe, I need you to run to the store to get parts or whatever you're doing, and you let him use that personal vehicle. He's involved in an accident. That claim could maybe be denied because it was written on a personal auto policy. So you always want to make sure you think about, okay, if somebody's using my vehicle, do we have the right insurance in place? Liability insurance. That's what's going to cover you in the event someone sues you for negligence, which can occur, for instance, if someone falls on your property. Or slip and fall is probably the most typical thing that you're going to run into when it comes to liability. Product liability could be something if you're designing something, or maybe you're selling an item. If you're a farmer selling cheese, let's say, and that gets somebody sick, product liability would be something that would come into play. Another type of insurance that would typically be available to a business that would be very important would be business interruption insurance. Your business burns down. There's some sort of loss there, and you can't operate. You still have bills to pay. This part of your policy will come into play, and this will pay for any expenses that are occurring during the time that you are not operating. That is critical for most people. You can usually get this in a set dollar amount, or you can get in what's called an actual loss sustained. So if you have revenues of $500 or $1 million a year, and you're out for a year, that policy will pay whatever it takes for you to keep going, maybe find another location, or just to keep paying your creditors until you can get back on your feet or get your business or building rebuilt. Workers' compensation insurance. If you have employees, you must, by law, participate in the workers' compensation program. In Virginia, if you have 2 or more employees, you have to have it. Now,
full-time or part-time employees?
Full-time. That being said, if an employee, whether it be one part-time, if they get injured, you are responsible for making them whole again. So the law may say that you don't have to have it until you have 2 employees. If your employee does get injured, whether it's the law or not, you are still responsible to make them whole. So when I'm asked, hey, should I have it? I always recommend you get it. And they say, well, the law doesn't require it. That's fine, but be prepared. If there is an injury, you're still responsible. Umbrella insurance. That would be a policy that's going to go over everything that you have from a liability perspective. So you've got your $1 million in liability coverage. You've got your $1 million in auto liability coverage. Now you're looking at it, you're talking to your insurance agent, and you've acquired some assets, and you feel that, you know what, if something happens and that $1 million would be exhausted, maybe an auto accident or a slip and fall case, that may not be enough. An umbrella policy goes over top of that. So that would give you another layer of protection. Yes?
Does a personal policy cover a sole proprietorship
No.
business?
No.
You would need a separate just for the business itself?
Well, I mean, do you have it? Is it a doing business as, or is that outside?
one owner, sole proprietorship, individual service providing type of business.
What type of business?
Let's say
That would
consulting.
matter. Consulting.
Let's say interior design or consulting.
All right, so I'll give you an example. We have a claim recently with they were a financial advisor. They did not have an umbrella policy. They were working out of their house, and they were sued. Their personal umbrella policy denied the claim because they were acting as part of a business. So if you were doing something out of the house, maybe woodworking or something along those lines that you could consider maybe hobby/business, you might be able to get that policy to trigger. But if you're doing consulting, I would recommend you.
Would you need an umbrella policy in addition to errors and omissions type of insurance to cover you as a sole proprietor?
We'll get to errors and omissions in a minute.
Okay.
Just for that.
Carry on.
That would be, that's going to be a separate policy. Errors and omissions. Professional liability. So if you are in the business of giving advice, making recommendations, designing products, providing any physical care, representing the needs of others, you could be sued by your customers, clients, or patients claiming for failure of your advice. Errors and omissions is about paying the person that is financially ruined. So, those limits usually go in increments of $1 million, and they can go up to $20, $30 million limit policies. Sometimes you will find, though, that the deductible on these can go up to $50,000. Another example, had a claim for an errors and omissions policy. They did not realize that their deductible was $50,000. They thought it was maybe $10,000. So while they needed the coverage because they were being sued for probably upwards of $1 million, they still had to come up with $50,000 first. So it was just one of those situations where they just didn't read the policy, or the policy was that old that they just never went back to revisit it. So your basic types of insurance, you're really going to be running across on a daily basis. Is going to be your general liability, commercial property, workers' compensation, commercial auto, garage liability. Anyone that's in here, I think I saw somebody that's working with a garage, possibly, maybe. I don't know if it's out of this group. Bonds, performance bonds, especially if you're in the construction business. I don't know if that gets me back. How do I go back? Happy thumb. Oh.
Where were you? Right here?
Right there. No, that's right there. Yes. It's almost to the end. Performance bonds, something maybe if you're in the construction business and you put a bid on a job, you don't finish the job, the bond would pay somebody else to come back in and fix whatever you didn't have time to complete. Farm insurance, I think I may have seen a farm operation on the list. Very important that you differentiate, a homeowner's policy and you actually get a farm policy to address the liability side. All right, I'm just not touching it anymore. All right, key points to remember, as you guys are getting into business, it was mentioned earlier, the insurance, I know it seems confusing and complicated and sometimes a tremendous waste of money. But if you find a trusted person to work with and you really continue to build that relationship, it does pay off in the end. You will lean on them heavily. Make sure you ask plenty of questions and you understand what you're buying. If there's ever a point where an agent just is kind of, okay, this is it, sign here, let's go, you might want to get a second opinion. Not saying that it's a bad deal, but it never hurts to ask, just to get a second opinion, ever. Review your policy with your agent on an annual basis. At a minimum, if you're a growing business, lots of moving parts, you're buying things constantly, look, if your place burns down or there's a major issue, stuff may not be covered. So I know it's hard to think about as you're in the full swing of working and you're building this business and there's things coming at you a million miles an hour. Sometimes you just have to remember that all this stuff that you're buying, you want to make sure it's protected. And last but not least, price should not always be the deciding factor. You can always find something cheaper out there, but it may not meet the needs that you're really looking for. Hence, a policy that has a $50,000 deductible versus a $10,000 deductible. Don't always shop on price. Make sure you understand what the product is and that you're getting something that is meeting the needs of your business. That's it. We do wish you all great success. I love seeing entrepreneurs and I love seeing new businesses pop up, so I hope every one of you guys do well. And the rest of the slides are just, you've got in front of you our connection points and how you can reach us. Any questions? Yes.
I have two questions. So first off, if the business interruption insurance, say your business is dependent on something like a rainmaker, does that cover like their injury if it's not job related and that they can't work for a certain amount of time?
Ask me the question again.
So if your business depends on like a rainmaker, like so because we're an interior design company. If the designer is injured and can't work.
It's like a key person.
Yeah,
A
like
key
a
person.
key,
So that would be what's called a key man. If you have that person that you cannot operate your business without,
Yeah.
you would want to look into getting maybe a disability policy for them, something that you can keep moving.
But would that be a business thing, or would that be like more of a personal, like long-term?
That would be a long term. I've never seen a business interruption policy be triggered by something like that.
Okay, because I know at one point she tried to like insure her hands.
Yeah.
And they were like, that's not what it's for.
But there are disability policies for that. Doctors are big on those. They will get disability policies, if they're hand specialists or whatever their specialty is. There are classes for that.
Okay.
Class codes, I'd say.
Okay. And then my other question is, as far as liability insurance goes, like we had a situation where, so we do installations of our manufacturing products, and there was something got broken at a client's house.
Okay.
That we didn't do it, but we ended up being held responsible for replacing it. Yeah.
Sure.
And our insurance agent told us to get liability insurance. Does that cover that?
That would. So that would be a property damage, would be a part of your policy. You would likely have a deductible, maybe $500.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of damage was it.
It was a painting that we had to get restored. It was like a couple $1,000.
So that would be a good example you would want to file that claim at that point. Small claims, if you have a property damage deductible $500 and the damage is $700, certainly you can file the claim, but I don't always recommend filing smaller claims like that when you really got to come out of pocket the majority of the money anyway.
Would an umbrella policy cover that?
No, because that hasn't been, the umbrella policy is going to come into play when everything else has been exhausted.
What if you only had an umbrella policy?
You'd have to have underlying limits. You'd have to have the general liability first before you would be able to get an umbrella policy. Yes.
We're the farm operation.
Yes.
We're putting up a pole barn that we're going to turn into a processing plant,
Okay.
making agriculture products. Typically, the other farm buildings that are on our property are insured by Farm Bureau. Our product liability comes to another company.
Okay.
Are we better off to keep our policies separate? Keep those types of policies separate, or to try to go with one organization and keep them all together with one company or whatever?
It's preference. For ease of doing business, from a business owner standpoint, I found that they really do like having it with one company. Maybe the agency can't put it all with the exact same company, but you would have one agent that has basically built your package for you. So it's preference. If you like Farm Bureau, let's say, maybe there's a better product liability policy out there. I'll go search for that. You can do that as well.
They
They maybe had one market for it.
yeah.
Probably with the Hartford, I bet, but it is. So,
That's who it was recommended to us to go to.
Yep. Are you doing poultry?
No.
Okay. Hartford does a great poultry product, but anyway.
See, that's what I like about independence. You can go from company to company to company and find the item that kind of fits that client.
We
right?
do. We
That's
have
the value.
a pretty broad portfolio of carriers that we shop with.
How many companies do you cover?
We have about 20, and then out of the 20, we represent 5 very large ones that we have really good relationships with. So, but that being said, Farm Bureau, great company. State Farm, Nationwide, also, they're all very good companies. And they have niche products that, can be very tough to beat. So, it doesn't mean that you can't find a better product somewhere else, but, that's not just, I don't want to discredit another company, because they all are very good in their own right, for sure. So, yes?
If you drive to a customer's home,
Mm-hmm.
are you required to have commercial insurance on the car?
No, what type of business are you in?
Professional organizing?
You would likely want to talk to your agent and see if you can put just what's called a work or a professional usage on your personal vehicle. Commercial auto is really used for a plumber or somebody maybe has a fleet of vehicles. But if you're a one-man show, real estate agents are a great example. They don't have commercial auto usually. They just they designate their personal auto to a business use class. That way, if they're involved in an accident, hey, I was out showing property, I had clients with me, somebody got injured, there's not a question.
What if there are no clients ever in the car?
And you're going from location to location
From home to a client's home?
to do work?
Yes, and leave?
Do you have any signage on your vehicle?
No.
like signage, does it say DeMello's design or anything?
Okay, I have a magnet, but
Okay,
I haven't used.
So you have a sign.
Yes, but I haven't used.
Okay, well, if the sign is on there, you really it should be listed as a business class. You wouldn't need to go to commercial auto, though. So that would be something you want to talk to your insurance agent about.
Is that more expensive?
A commercial auto policy would, but just going from a usage class from just personal daily use, maybe to business use, it'd be minimal.
Yeah, it's not very expensive. That's what I have.
$20.
I drive
for
to
the
meet
year.
clients rarely or clients in my vehicle, but I use it.
Yep.
So I just have one of those riders on.
You just do a business use
The only
class.
other downside is that I can't claim any of my
Any taxes?
personal property taxes. I
Yep.
don't get the benefit of the discount or any of that because it's used for
Sure.
work and not. But then I just take it off on the back end anyway. But it's not expensive
No.
at all.
No.
And that's all you would need to see. You're not hauling.
You're not, you wouldn't be deemed commercial. So I would just talk to your agent and let them know not just let them know what you're doing.
Oh, but what if I'm driving people that are helping me with a job? Then that changes?
Are they employees?
No,
No.
they're 1099.
We get into that too. That's a whole nother topic. But I would recommend just putting the business use class. I mean, unless you're going to multiple stops on a daily basis. If you're hauling people around on a daily basis, but if it's, hey, let's get in the car, we have to go do this project. Hey, can you drive? No, I can't drive. Let's get in here and let's just drive over here real quick. I would recommend a business use class on your personal auto. That's what I would recommend. You're welcome.
Any other questions? Appreciate it.
All right, no problem.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
So we're going to take a second here, but before we get started again, I just want to go on about the business plan because I've had a couple of people talk to me. We were talking about the summary thing, and not to stress out about it, but the fact that we are talking about a synthesized, a summary version of your business plan. And I think you all have this either emailed to you or sitting in front of you. These are sort of the guidelines for the thing. The business plans need to be submitted by midnight, 3:30. The maximum is 12 pages. If you can do it and get the story across in 6, wonderful. If you can do it in, something, this is not going and, it's going to be sent to, Charlotte or someplace for a bunch of people to look at to give you no, this is a summary. I just keep going on about it because when people come to talk to me, we talk about business plans and we talk about business plan outlines. We can get really deep into it about the operating plan and how that's going to work. But for you and for this, it might be a case of just a paragraph or two. Let's talk about how your business works. So, the marketing plan may be a little bit longer because it's going to take a while to explain how do you get to it. And after I talk with you next week about doing your market research and understanding who your customer is, you probably want to make it huge, but I think we can do it as a summary. And again, I just keep going over and over, and I just want to make sure that we don't get hung up to those references we gave you. We've got some other examples of business plans, and we were trying to find some very short ones, and we got 22-page ones, and we were like, that's not going to be good. It's the wrong example, because we don't want you just taking something you found and start cutting and pasting off of it. We want it to be you talking about your business, okay? So I don't keep going on about that at all. But anyway, so we're going to get to this, the piece that, and we're going to make a little bit of an adjustment here. Darla Guverman is going to be filling in for tonight. If you talked to Mike we heard Mike talk last week. Well, Darla's the one that makes Mike all the.
I'm the puppet master.
Yeah, she's the person that makes it happen. And so we're going to talk about forms of business and talking about whether you should be an LLC or if you want to be an S corp or whatever. Licensing permits, and that can get, depending on where you are in the state of Virginia, every jurisdiction has a little bit different take. So Darla is, again, with Mike Guverman, and Distinctions is the name of their company, and she's going to give you a little overview on that. Do we have the slides set up?
Yep. So, I'm a filler. These aren't my slides. Just in case you're wondering, I'm not John Wynn, PhD from SU.
We would also like to say that we don't like these slides.
Yes.
I'm Sherry Wright. I'm the Executive Director of the Shenandoah County Chamber. We will be tag teaming this.
Yes.
Not very well.
But it'll be comic relief, if nothing else.
We've decided that we will go through the slides, but we're also going to go through your business plan outline, which will be on the second page. And that's more the operations, the supplier, and management. So we're going to try to answer those questions. So some slides that we're going to go through here, we may skip because we don't know why they're there. And again, I was the one that cried when he showed me the booklet he gave you guys last week, because I have a master's and my booklet wasn't even that thick. And I was like, really? You gave these to these people and they came back? So that's awesome on you guys.
Thanks for coming back.
Yeah.
Does everybody have the slides, by the way? I didn't mean to interject. Everybody have the slides?
So do we.
We start
So
with
we're
legal
going to guess what
aspects.
he wanted to say about them. You got to point it over that way. That way?
Oh.
Left. Yeah, okay.
You want me to point
There you
it
go.
out?
Here we go. What am I saying? I'll later do this. Okay, well, here we are. Business forms. I'm not sure what he wanted to talk about there. Human resources, UCC collections, title issues, and litigation. So that was the overall operations that he wanted to talk about. So let's talk about you guys. How many of you are sole proprietors or going to be a sole proprietor?
Or think you should be a sole proprietor.
So there's two. You are already, and that's what you're thinking about.
And you're in between that and LLC. Okay, that is excellent.
Yes.
And you two, you're in between, or okay? Yeah, because there's good and bad things about both of them. So,
Yes.
So good choices on that.
So how many of you want to be?
Press play on the presentation for it to, okay.
Sorry. Thank you.
We're new at this, so
Yeah.
any help that you guys can give us would be awesome. Okay.
Who else is a partnership or a limited partnership or a C Corp or an S Corp? So we have some of both. So we have some of everything pretty much in here. Anybody else a limited liability LLP, like limited liability partnership or limited liability corporation? They're different.
We're switching from one to the other.
Okay. Okay. What are you now?
We're an LLC now, and we're going to be, I guess, an LLP.
LLP.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have something of everything. And anybody a franchise or a sub S? There's a lot less sub S's than there are. Anybody over there?
Most flexible.
Okay,
Okay.
awesome. So those are all the major business forms, so that if you were wondering what different kinds of forms you could have, keep going back. Those are all of them. I will stop moving the button. You should be in charge.
Okay, what are we doing?
Be in charge of it. I don't know. It's not worked for me so hard, so every time I hit it, it didn't work.
It's the left.
Try it out.
Left? Left button.
And then.
The other left? How many lefts do I have?
This one, try this one.
Oh, wait, where did I go?
You went down, go
I
up.
did.
Sorry,
You totally can be in charge.
you're in charge, okay, yay.
Good job. Thank you, Andrew.
Go up.
Andrew.
Wait.
Oh, yeah, then, well, and
Yeah.
one more. There you go.
Okay.
Then 375 for us. And that gets you both.
Can I write you 2 separate checks?
Yeah.
Okay.
Want to talk about these? Office
Yeah.
of the Clerk of the Court?
I guess that's where you go. You go to Office of the Clerk in order to register. Yeah, to register your
You guys
corporation.
ever been on that Virginia Corporation Commission website, any of you?
Yeah, everybody's registered with the SEC.
Yeah.
You
Reserving
can do it
company
for a
business names. I'm pretty sure you guys have probably already done all of this, considering you've been in business for a year.
But if you haven't, for those of you who have not opened your business, you're going to go to the SEC website. That's where you're going to become a registered agent. That's where you're going to become a real business in the eyes of the state. And that it's a $50 fee. Basically, you sign up every year. You get to pay $50 to the state
Yeah,
to
especially
be registered.
reserving your company business names. That's really important.
Absolutely.
She left us.
Where'd you go?
You're in charge. I'm in charge.
You can hit the scroll button, and it'll actually move the slide for you. That might be easier.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
So, looks like you want to talk about limited liability companies, with a lot of you guys already are. They're the easiest, they're the most flexible kind of company to have. They're the simplest to operate. There's no ownership restrictions at all. There's far less corporate formalities that you have to have in a limited liability company, but it's got some of the same protections as a formal company. So that's a definite plus for an LLC. It's owner or manager managed. So if you're the owner, or if you have 4 of you and you can all be managers, then you're all managing the partnership. So that is another way to run the business under an LLC. So it doesn't just have to be a sole proprietor. It can be 3, 4, 10 of you. It doesn't matter how many managers there are. There's no earnings distribution restrictions, so you can put it all out to all of the ownership, or whoever the managers are that you want to be part of that management group and ownership group for distribution purposes. So you don't have any kind of restrictions, whereas in a formal S Corp, you're going to have those restrictions as to how much you can dole out to the ownership. Your self-employment tax, I'm sure that's what he's talking about at the 15.3%, is what 15.3% self-employment is. Social Security, tax, Medicare are all on your earnings. So it's not like you get to put into Social Security. It's all based on your earnings. And there's no unemployment taxes except on actual employees. So if I'm an owner of the company and I have, Janet as my marketing person, then she is going to get paid and taxed like a normal employee, not as an owner. So I don't get unemployment or any of the unemployment taxes or Social Security taxes that go with it, but she does because she's an employee. So it depends on how many employees you have, and if your employees, they're definitely taxed differently and looked at differently than you as the owner would be.
So,
Yes.
clarify the 15.3%, that's what the payroll tax is on
The
earnings
owner,
for the
yes,
owner.
plus then whatever you make on income at the end of the year. So you're kind of almost double taxed. Yeah.
Okay.
1040 is the tax form that you're going to fill out at the end of the year. You're going to usually do a Schedule F for LLCs, and the members of the LLC, they're all going to get or a K1. That's what you're going to end up with at the end of the year. I don't know what he wanted to talk about on this.
This is to prove that you need a really good accountant. All businesses should have a good accountant, because you guys have so much on your plate that if you actually are looking for the 1040 CE or F, something's going wrong with your business. You should never have time to do your own taxes. Just letting you guys know that. You need an accountant. You're going to have a lot of deductibles. You're going to need to know depreciation, how that all works, how it carries over. Get a good accountant, one that you actually trust and not somebody you just saw in the yellow pages, which just dated me.
Yeah, it's
someone you found Google that had the first ad.
Yeah,
Sorry.
the same way with your insurance agent. I mean, on your team, when you think of, I need a marketing person, I need an accountant, I need a bookkeeper, I need a receptionist, you need a good insurance agent, you need a good banker, and you need a good lawyer and a good accountant. Those are the things that those people are on your team, whether they are on your payroll or not, but they need to be on your team. And they need to be viewed as your executive management team, part of your executive management team, because you shouldn't make a decision without your insurance agent, your accountant, your lawyer. All of those folks need to be on your team and helping you make those decisions
And
as a business owner.
They should not be your personal friends, though I love them.
Correct.
But they shouldn't be your personal friends, because friends will often, you can persuade them to do, no, they should never be your personal friends. This is business. Business is business. There's no emotion in business, which is hard to learn.
Yes.
Look at them, if I might, look at them as your board of directors, whether they directly are part of it. They're sitting around that table, whether it's virtually or they really are sitting around the table. But they are part of it, and they should be people, I think, as Sherry said, that we have a little article, and I'll probably, that says, it's your board of directors, it's not your go out to lunch crowd. It's people that you're serious about, and they're serious about what you're doing. So I can't reiterate that enough.
And they want to see you succeed because they succeed in that way, too.
Exactly. Talk about this one, Sherry.
I don't like S-Corps, so I really don't want to.
Me either.
Someone said they were an S-Corp in here?
Is anybody an S-Corp? She is. Why?
Why did you pick S-Corp instead of LLC?
Accountant said it was a good idea.
Huh.
That always comes back to bite you.
I'm not.
Did you ask him why?
Yes, we talked about it, but it's,
I know, because
Yeah.
he uses a lot of language that you don't understand.
Yep.
How long ago was that? Was that recent?
Yeah, was it recently?
yeah, we've only been open a year, so yeah.
S-corps were extremely popular about 5 years ago.
They were.
They
And
were,
then some loopholes were changed, and they
It made them not
since
nearly as
then not
lucrative.
been attractive.
because I understand there's a portion of personal liability that comes in S-Corp where in LLC there isn't.
Correct.
So I would revisit that, just because I know in S-Corp, I think the taxes might be a little bit lower, or how you do things are a little bit easier, but that doesn't make it, again, I'm
Worth it.
not a fan of it, so it's kind of like, I don't like, Gouda cheese, so I can't say anything good about it. Same thing here.
One of the ways that you can think about an S corp is it's like an LLC, but if you have more owners. With an LLC, it's actually more of a pass-through entity, meaning that you are actually going to pay. And I'll step back so everyone can see me. You're actually going to pay your taxes on your individual tax return. When you file those, you're going to have addendums to it. Once you get into your S corps and your C corps, then you're paying your accountant to do a little more work. They have to go in and look at how many shareholders you have, what is going to impact those shareholders, and so there's a little bit more involved with that. Kind of going through with your sole proprietorship, your DBA, it all depends on how you're going to structure your business and how much liability you have. If you're not going to have really any liability, then doing a DBA or just a sole proprietorship and running everything off of your name, your credit, and what the car that you have, that could be perfectly fine for you. But then as you go into, I'm going to have some people riding in my car, or I'm going to be going into job sites, and there's some liability there that I don't want to be coming back to me. That's when you can look into the LLC. You still have that pass-through. You're taxed at that same, similar self-employment but individual rate. With the S Corp and the C Corp, I'm more familiar with the C Corp than the sub-S, but that's where you're looking into getting you pay your corporate taxes, your sales tax, everything up front, and then as things are passed back to the owners. With an S Corp, it's still passed to your individual tax return. With a C Corp, you pay corporate income tax on it, and then you pay income tax on it again, so you have a double taxation there.
But you do have more personal liability with an S-Corp than you would with an LLC, and I think that's a kind of major portion of that.
When we're talking about umbrellas, that's an umbrella. The LLC is an umbrella of shielding.
Whoa. I'm doing the best I can. It's like,
It's okay.
it's like
It's not our
Easter
slides.
famine. Yeah, going over it again, sole proprietorship, yes at DBA.
What does that mean, yes, BA?
Doing business, yeah.
Doing business as. So you could be, your sole proprietorship is going to be under your social security number, but you're doing business as,
somebody
Oh,
else.
okay.
like distinctions. If I were a sole proprietorship, but then I was doing business as distinctions, it would be under my tax ID number, which is my social security number, as opposed to, whereas an LLC, it's under my LLC's tax
Your
ID
business,
number.
or your
You can
business.
do
Not necessarily, right?
And you
Because
can
Correct.
do that, yeah.
Right, you
It's
can
a
do.
pass-through entity, so
Yeah.
I get taxed with my social security number, or I file my
Yes.
taxes with my social security number. But
And I
not
still do
LLC.
too, as an LLC, because it doesn't go through,
You can do it
The
two
LLC.
different ways.
yeah.
There is, with an LLC, you can register it using your own social security number. With a DBA, really all you're doing is registering with the Office of the Court, locally or state. And if you're just doing a DBA, you don't necessarily have to even register it with the SEC. It's just letting them know that I am legally out there selling myself under a certain name or doing a certain business. And so it lets them know that that's out there. And it's registered within kind of your local, either depending on what the regulation is with your county, your city, you just have to register there and say, hey, this is what I'm doing.
So do you need a DBA if you form the LLC?
Technically, you already have
Have
one if
one,
you're registered with the
Okay.
SEC. You're good to go. It's registered with the state that you are in existence and you are running as that business.
Gotcha. And if you ever wanted to like sell under a different, like if you had a different product line, for example, that wasn't necessarily like correlated with
You.
your
Yes.
business name, then you would file a DBA.
You can, absolutely.
You could, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a possibility.
Or the other possibilities are,
You know, what should we do? If, yeah, like we're branding two separate things under the same LLC, should we file DBAs for both of like both names of the businesses?
It depends on how you're separating things out. If you really
Financially.
don't care about the product line per se, and you just have a copyright on that product line, everything that goes into it, if you research into that, if you want to structure things separately, and this is where the banker in me is going to come out, and I'm sorry.
It's okay.
If you want to have an account that is, we'll say, and I know a little bit more about Marin's business, we'll say curtains and drape manufacturing, and that's what your DBA is going to be. You could separate that out into a different account and run it under that DBA and have checks written to that, doing business as name if you want it to be separated out.
Okay.
Then if you're a sole proprietor, I have customers of mine who have 3 or 4 different products that they sell, and it all goes into one pot, and then their accountant calls me at the end of the year and says that I need to help them figure out where everything went, and we get to have fun conversations. So it all depends on how you're going to be monitoring it, how you want it separated out, and how you're going to run your business. So that's kind of the form of what you're going to do. If you want to have different product lines, you may not need to have a doing business as for each product line. You could be insert your business name here, but we're selling X, Y, and Z. Or you could say, you know what, I want to differentiate. Let's say you have 2 things that are very similar. And so you're going to sell curtains under one name and draperies under another. And that way you can also increase the price on the one and lower the price on the other to kind of create an interesting mix. If you want to do that, then you're probably going to want to work on different names, different branding, product lines, things like that. So to get very complicated.
Or to not get very complicated, like we owned Executive Protection Systems. We had several different lines of business. Started out as a weapons of mass destruction preparedness company, and it ended up as an all hazards emergency preparedness company. So we did security, which was electronic security, access control. We did WMD preparedness training. We did OSHA training, and we did products on all of those lines. So all of them were under the one head, but all under the LLC. None of them had different DBAs.
Okay.
So they were all under that same head, but they all had different, and when we sold it, we sold the whole lot, the whole kit and caboodle.
It's also a good idea if you're taking a business a new direction. I took over a business with an unpronounceable, unspellable name. I got really tired of having to spell it over the phone, so when you changed it for a business, I went down to the court costs, spent $15, and made it much easier.
Okay,
Yeah.
because part of our problem is that my business partner registered the LLC and then changed her last name
Mm-hmm.
and does business under her new last name, but our LLC is still,
Under the old name.
yeah, and so we're getting some pushback about whether or not it's worth changing the LLC name.
You can go in and change it.
Doesn't matter.
It's really not all that hard.
Okay.
It's a lot easier to change a DBA than it is to change an LLC name.
It's also not that hard to change.
Yeah, it's not that hard, yeah. It's really not.
It's faster and
Yeah.
everything's like that.
Depends
Unless you
on
think-
if you want to do the legal documents yourself or how much you want to pay a lawyer.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Or unless you think she might change her name back. You might just want to wait.
Yeah, exactly. And we're gonna undo, or not gonna put it.
Okay, I'm just, just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
You might want, see how our relationship is going. Take her on a date night.
So it looks like the next thing we're talking about is human resources and the,
Yeah, we don't
you know,
know
the
why that's.
Society for Human Resource Management, which is a great thing. If you have employees, you should be involved. Somebody in your organization should be involved in the Society for Human Resource Management because they give you lots of great detail on what you need to do as an employer in terms of all of your human resources. And they're a great resource for when you have that issue that comes up that you go, yeah, I got nothing. How do I explain this one? How do I fix this problem with an employee? They're a great resource to be there. And I have some prime examples that I could go on and on about in real life that have happened that you go, okay, so that's a new one. I've been in business for a long time and that's a new one. So what do I do with that? And they're a great resource to reach out to and say, this just came up. Never had this happen. What do I do? And a real life example was, and we're going to talk about EEOC in just a second, but the employee came in and he decided that he wanted to tell everyone that would listen to him that he was a racist. And he told it to a guy that was brand new on the job for the first day who happened to be an African American male and the only one in the company at the time, and told him he was a racist and he didn't like women and that women should be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. And he proceeded to tell every woman that would listen to him, and as well as the first African American that we had hired. And they both came to me, like several of them came to me and said, so this is what happened, what do we do? And we had been in business for probably 10 years before that had ever happened. And we said, we're going to take care of it. And so we had to really carefully think about what we were going to do, how we were going to handle it. And it was all about documentation, 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 and then eventually letting that said employee go. And then said employee filed for unemployment, and he got denied. And then when he got denied from that, he then filed an EEOC complaint, which we're going to, I think there's a slide that goes on to EEOC here. But he filed an EEOC complaint, which it took 3 years for it to finally be resolved as an employer. But eventually EEOC was like, huh? Because he complained that he was being discriminated against because he was a white male working for a female. And there were, he was working directly for, his supervisor was a female, but then past that was me as a female, and then there was a male that was the president, and on and on and on. But anyway, it was a really interesting way to try and fight us as for his unemployment, but which he ended up not getting any of it, and he got nowhere with the EEOC. But that employee caused us as an ownership group, and me in particular, a lot of work and time in fighting that claim, because I had to document everything. And luckily I had all the documentation from day one of the first complaint to everything after that. And so it was good in the end because I could send all of that to the EEOC and say, this is what happened. And eventually, years later, when they finally got around to looking at it, they said, this is ridiculous, and it's been, put in the file, sorry, you lose. So, go ahead.
I realize I can Google this, but are there firms that you can contract out to do things like that?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You can call me if you need. Sorry, now an expert in it.
Isn't Virginia a right to work state? Does
It
make
is.
easier
It
to
is.
hire
It is.
people?
However,
You still have
you
to
still have to
document
everything that you
And
do
we'll
say.
kind of go
yeah.
into that in a couple more slides, but I worked for a transportation company for 17 years as human resources, dispatch, love men. But you have to document everything, because it eventually comes around and they will say, yeah, this happened, but did you document it? Did they sign it? Even if you do a verbal warning, you have to document. Documentation will save you every single time.
Absolutely.
So, and
From
especially,
that experience, I can tell you that we documented, I had every employee that had the complaint, I said, put it in writing. Put it in writing. And so they all did, they all signed it. Then once they even put it wasn't just an email, it was an email with them signing, yes, this is what happened.
sign, date,
Exactly. And then
and
from,
with a witness. And
exactly. And then we had a meeting with him, had that documented, had him sign what we talked about. And eventually he was fired. It took about 3 weeks before we actually fired him, because we didn't fire him on the spot, even though that's what I initially was my first reaction was, he's done, out, he needs to go, but he didn't do that. So following what we knew was the right way to do it. And luckily it saved us in the end, because he ended up with no unemployment, he ended up with no complaint that was filed in his favor, and so.
So screening, when you get a new employee, criminal background check. If they're driving any of your cars, you obviously want a motor vehicle report. And usually you can get the employee to go ahead and get that and bring that to you as part of their application process. Military credit report, I've never had to deal with credit report. Drug testing, absolutely. You make sure you get that drug test.
And make sure you
checks.
continue the drug test.
Yeah.
That they're not just a
And they are,
one and done.
And they are actually a surprise. It's not like, oh,
Yeah.
so Monday we're going to do a drug test. No. It's like, yeah, we're doing a drug test.
And the first person that says, oh, we have drug testing here, that's the person you want to talk to, because you know that they're going to absolutely fail the test.
Or the person's like, oh, I haven't been drug tested in a long time. That person needs to go.
And I'll tell you, as a partnership, I was in a LLC with a partnership, and when I said we need drug testing, because I came in and I realized that there were folks that needed to be drug tested, and my partner said, no, we can't do that. I said, can you be drug tested? And he said, yeah, I can now, but we shouldn't drug test. And I said, no, we definitely should drug test. Well, his son was our partner, was our employee. And so I knew then that that's who he was protecting. And ultimately, I fired his son 3 times for just that.
And one other thing I want to say about drug testing, if they are driving your vehicles or if they do have an accident in your place of business,
Yeah, 3 times, I know, it's dumb.
make sure that they're drug tested as well. Whenever they go to the hospital, make sure they're drug tested, because that will help with your workman's comp claim later on in life. And if you can alcohol test them, if you think there's a reason for it, you can have it done. But it has to be done right away on both of them. You can't.
If it's for a work comp claim, you have to set that up with the facility that it has
Yeah.
to be set up prior.
Yes.
Prior.
You can't have an injured employee just show up at the hospital and you call and say,
Say, hey, drug test.
No,
Yeah,
you have to.
And a program has to be in place. That has to be set up so they know when your employee comes in.
From a practical point of view, I keep one in the car. I hire a lot of people, and in the restaurant business, they're not always the best ones. And one guy was coming out of rehab. We gave him a try. I showed him the test, kept him in the car, and he was out of there 3 weeks later.
You just show them the test.
Yeah.
This is way too
pretty
clear.
slick. This is the way it works. Yeah, that's great.
Buy them in CVS.
Mhm.
When you hire an employee, do you have to disclose that you made drug tests? Or after like 5 years of them being there, can you just say, I changed my mind and now I'm going to drug test?
You can do that.
Yeah, you
But I
can
think
say,
what they're saying too, it needs to be a written policy.
Yeah.
It has to be written. Yeah.
and it has to be for everybody.
It should be in their handbook. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And that's where another piece, an operating plan, how your business works, part of it is an employee or an employee handbook. Here's what our rules and regulations are. Here's what we run by. So
And you can
everybody knows.
update that
You
at
just
any
drop
time.
it on-
Yeah.
it's done.
Typically, an insurance agent would help you create a drug-free work program.
Yeah.
Because it gives credit with your workers' compensation.
It does. It helps on your insurance. It also helps you figure out what your rules are. I mean, because you don't necessarily know when you start your business. You think, I can do this. And then all of a sudden you're hiring people and hiring more people and hiring more people. And then problems come up. And it's better to have that plan written out prior to those problems coming up before you have to go, ooh, we have to add that to our policy. Because I can tell you as a business owner way back, I didn't have that policy, and I started writing them as everything came up. I'm like, okay, that's another policy we need to add. And so now, obviously, I've gotten that figured out and know what those policies need to
So
be.
if you have a good foundation on that,
Yeah.
and anybody can help you with that, you can always add policies. As social media stuff comes up, and so don't ever feel shy about adding a policy. be like, oh, should I? No, go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
Reference checks, make sure you do reference checks. Make sure you actually, I know you guys are all busy, but make sure you actually are making those phone calls or sending those emails or sending those, I'm going to say fax things and age myself again, but make sure you're actually doing reference checks on everybody. Academic report is, I guess, depending on who you're hiring. If you're hiring a manager and they are supposed to have a certain degree, make sure they have that degree. Because yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it's just
When I was doing shop work years ago, we would hire a lot of young people, and of course, this is, again, they mess up. We usually do not do those kinds of things, but the one thing that we did that saved us from hiring bad employees, if the kid was within 3 years of getting out of high school, we called a school and asked what his attendance record was.
Great.
And that was usually the make or break decision.
I don't think that they're allowed to disclose that anymore.
they're not. They're only allowed to say if they. I don't even know if they're allowed to say
Graduated.
I don't know if they're allowed to say they graduated.
Because of for privacy reasons.
Yeah.
You're not.
That's why you need to know people. Know people who know people who know people, so you can get that information.
You're allowed to ask what they read.
Yeah.
Yes.
I always do so if something didn't happen, don't say anything. And then they're quiet. It's like, okay, so you didn't say anything, but you answered my question. So there's always ways around stuff.
Isn't that the same thing with reference checks? That because I used to work in New York State, and there was a whole thing of you can't trash people because they can go back and sue you for not getting a job because of whatever you said.
Correct, but there are certain questions you can ask, and you can, there's a lot of online resources you can get. There's a lot of questions you can ask that will help get a better feel of what happened, who they are. Because there are a lot of companies that will just say, this is the date, period, and the subject.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, but there's some questions you can ask that kind of.
And there's some really great survey companies out there that you can utilize to ask the people that they've given you as a reference to be able to give you true quality feedback. And that way they don't necessarily know who sent the feedback, and they can opt in or out of whether or not they get to see what the feedback was. But then you can, I know I just got one from an employee recently, and I gave honest feedback on the employee. And so I don't feel badly whether they hire him or they don't hire him based on what I said, but at least they got my true honest feedback, and he was a good employee. I'm not saying he wasn't, but there were some things that he could have worked on, and I said that in my reference. And it was because their survey was worded really well, and there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of HR surveys out there that you can utilize as an employer.
I was going to say steal, but I guess that's not the right word.
And the one thing always to keep in mind when I was a manager for a pharmacy, and very similar to, I think, what you have with hiring younger individuals or individuals that you're hiring quite frequently, if you ask the question, you have no legal liability. If you ask the question, the legal liability is whether they answer. So if you call somebody as a reference in his previous employer, if that person answers the question, then really it's not anything on you. You have the information that you need. So several of the managers that I worked for always said, always ask, were they a good employee? Because you'll either get a pause, or you may have somebody who says no. And that gives you information that can be very valuable, because you may not have to go through 3 weeks of cycling them out. You can get that right up front. So you can actually ask those questions. Now on the flip side, if you have an employee that leaves, I would honestly say give the answer if they work here. That's all I can do.
Yeah.
So there's a kind of two different sides on that.
But there's always even over the phone, you can hear the body language when you ask certain things. And if they do pause, that kind of answers your question right there. Because if they're a good employee, you're going to be absolutely, I hated to have them go. And if they weren't a good employee, you'll be like, you always filter, how do I say something nice about them? So.
Clearly this is from a college professor's standpoint, because he chose LexisNexis as a first commercial background checking service, which all of these are great background checks. I would also recommend that you go to your local background checkers. There's lots of them locally that you can go to and say, hey, can you do a background check for me? There's a whole lot of really great online services, survey services that you can utilize to ask the questions you want that are customized to what you're going to be doing. So that's these are good, but there are many others as well out there. But these are a great starting point.
If you're hiring somebody that you think is bad, then don't hire them. That's good advice. That should be a pillow. Don't hire somebody that you have. We all have good. Yeah, we have a good feeling about somebody. It's one of those first date things. You go on a first date, you have a bad feeling, you don't go again. So when you're interviewing these people, if you just don't feel right about something they said or something they did, or even body language or something, steer clear. It doesn't matter what their references are or anything else. Your gut usually will tell you.
And a lot of times, I know I've been in the position where we need to hire a lot of people really quickly. You want to hire them. You want them to be the person that's the right fit for the job.
And you want to believe them.
Exactly. But you really need to listen. Listen to what they say. And I found a great way to interview people, and I will do it forever from now on. I hired the last folks that I hired in EPS. I had them come in individually, one-on-one, and met with them. And then I brought the 3 last candidates in together, and I made them interview in front of each other and in front of our panel. So it was almost like, a Shark Tank kind of thing, except for it was kind of like what you guys are going to go through, except for it was for the job. And we asked each of them the same question. And then we did it in different random orders so that they didn't all, like the first person to get asked the question first always, and got to really understand what their answers were and who they were. And the person that we thought was going to be the best candidate ended up not getting the job. And the other 2 candidates ended up both getting the job, a different job. They both got to work for us. And it was because we brought them in together and really made them work against each other to be the candidates that we wanted to hire. And I have recommended one of those candidates over and over and over again. Since I left EPS, she wanted to leave EPS. I got her another job, and since then she's moved on. But she has, I will recommend her till the day I die, because she was one of the best candidates that interviewed and one of the best employees I've ever had. So it will always be that kind of, and it's a way to filter it out and figure out the one you thought had on the paper had the best qualifications was the one who didn't even get the job in the end.
So how do you feel about working interviews? We have a very specific skill set.
I love working interviews.
I think they're terrific.
Because a lot of people say they know how to do something and they don't have a clue.
We did that for our communication side. If they came in to do electronic security, they needed to understand electronic security, and they couldn't just say, I know how to do it. They had to actually show us, and we had tests set up that they had to come in and take, and they would either pass them or fail them.
And especially when it comes to social media, we had Shenandoah Music Festival is just hiring somebody, and they're like, yeah, I know social media, and I can do WordPress, and he's like, okay, here, and they didn't have a clue. They kind of pulled up WordPress and go, I don't know. So they looked beautiful on paper, they interviewed well, you put them in front of WordPress, and they're like, oh, this is pretty, so I can copy and paste. But that's not what he needed. Absolutely.
Are there any requirements legally about compensation or anything like that?
No. As long as they know that that's part of the interview process. And if they balk and say, no, we don't want to do it because we don't get paid, that there tells you what kind of person they are. So.
We don't even do any more non-work interviews. If it looks like you can do it on the piece of paper, you come in for 4 hours, and you either do it or you leave it alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of companies do that.
And I think a lot more have turned to that, especially when the economy was so bad and people would just say anything
to get a job
on the resume. I could say I could build an arc to get a job, and I like the hammer thing. And that's it. So the whole measuring is beyond me. I have a really bad arc, but I have a job. Oops, wrong way. Okay, I don't know what happened with this one, but I think somebody wasn't paying attention and they stole the rest of the words off of here. So
don't shoplift.
No. If you actually own a shop, your local police will come and inspect it and see where your problems are, how your cameras are, if your cameras aren't in the right place, again, where your problems are, please use them for that. That's what they're there for. And try to get in touch with your local police. They'll let you know if something's going on. Like this past weekend in Woodstock and Strasburg, there was counterfeit bills being passed around. And unless you actually were in touch with the police or read their newsletters, you didn't know that was going on. Last 2 weeks, pizza places have been hit really hard in the Shenandoah Valley. So hopefully none of you guys, because they're looking for you. But just get a hold of your police. Let them know. Make sure whatever your shoplifting policy is, it's listed everywhere in the store, that you will be prosecuted. I mean, there's going to be penalties for what you do. And don't put up the fake cameras. Just go ahead and put up the real cameras. People know if they're fake cameras.
I can promise you I know. And if I know, then a criminal's going to know. They're going to absolutely know. So absolutely make sure they're real and they're live and they're capturing something, because that's
go the extra mile.
Valuable information.
And that they're actually capturing something you can see and not just, oh, look at that blob, because that doesn't help anybody. So just spend the extra money.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Different types of employees, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So obviously you can have an agent, you can have an independent contractor, you can have employees. You're going to pay all of the taxes that are associated with having an employee. You're going to insure them the way you would any employee would be expected to be insured. An independent contractor, they're going to be your 1099, your accountant, your lawyer, your handyman would be a 1099 individual contractor. I also contract out, so part of my business I do marketing, and I am not a graphic designer, so I hire out my graphic design work to a graphic designer, and she's an independent contractor. She does her own taxes, she has her own business, but I hire out to her to do some of my graphic design work.
Can I bring a point into that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
If you have someone that you are going to do as a 1099, they do have to have their own company.
Correct.
You can't just say, oh, I'm going to pay you a 1099.
Right.
They have to have established themselves with their own company. They have to have their own.
Yeah, it can't just be because I want to hire you to do it.
Or is it up to them to say they do?
My feeling is I think when they go to do their taxes, it's going to be hard for them to explain. But I mean,
Yeah.
they
They have to have that.
You have to tell them that, and then basically it's their responsibility.
It's their responsibility to handle it.
And there are several companies that I know will go out and hire you as a 1099 employee, but that's not, you cannot be a 1099 employee. You have to be an independent contractor, like Jeff said. You can't be a 1099 employee. That's not, there's no such thing. You're either an employee or you're a 1099 contractor. You're not.
You're telling them when to show up in the morning and telling them how long they're going to work and all that
You're
stuff.
an employee.
You're an employee.
Exactly.
Exactly.
1099, they should theoretically have their own insurance.
Exactly.
And they should provide you a certificate of insurance.
Yeah, because it does go.
They should provide you their W-9.
It goes to workman's comp. You don't have to have workman's comp in an independent contractor. And when I was in the trucking industry, we had owner-operators. Those were people who own their own truck. They were independent contractors. We had one guy who got hurt. He tried to sue us for workman's comp. He was an independent contractor, so we didn't have to pay. Which is what that.
That's where a lawyer comes in.
Yes.
Here's a fun one. What do you do when your employee refuses to give you any of the information to do their taxes?
So they refuse from day one, then they're not your employee.
They're not your employee.
Wouldn't be your employee.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No, because you need that information.
They don't have, I mean, surprising though, they don't have to give you like their personal phone number and things like that, like contact information. That can be considered private information, but they need to give you the information you need to do your taxes.
Yeah.
Your taxes.
Three types of employees, there's contract, I don't know that you can have bargaining units in Virginia, but at-will employees, obviously everybody's an at-will employee in the state of Virginia. No status worker. Sorry, we're reading this along with you.
We're trying to get into his head.
Yeah. There's nothing you have to do.
I think just make sure that tax withholding, whether you have to take workman's comp on him, make sure you get, your Social Security, Medicare. You need to make sure you're taking your taxes out. You need to cover you need to cover yourself. Whether they're paying their taxes or not, it's not really your idea. I mean, you can visit them in jail, but let's not visit you in jail. So make sure you're taking care of everything you need to do. But that's why you have a good accountant. Your accountant will handle this. And if he's not good with payroll, then get a payroll specialist. QuickBooks does it too. It's kind of lengthy, but if you have an accountant on staff, I would make sure
Bookkeeper, they can do
yeah, make sure they have QuickBooks training.
Yeah.
This might sound silly, so all of that, like the withholding, comes out of their payroll, right?
Correct.
So so like legally, if you say it's $17 an hour, because I had that happen with someone that were like, they went to take the taxes out of their payroll, and they're like, well, no, whoa, you told me it was gonna be $17 an hour.
No, it comes out of their
It
pay.
comes out of their pay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's really changing someone from a 1099 to an employee. It doesn't financially hit the employer at all. It's just on that. It's taking out of their payroll.
Right.
Correct. Yeah.
Right,
You
because
still have to match, if they're an employee, you have to match their
You have to match that,
Social
yes.
Security and.
There's Social Security and their Medicare.
So you do pay an equal
You have to
amount.
pay.
You do,
Yeah.
yes.
That's the difference between an employee.
Yeah, and an employee, and difference between 1099, because in 1099, you're not paying any of that.
But yeah, just so you know, you do have to, because you're paying their taxes for them. What they do beyond that is.
That's a question.
Yes.
Could you please clarify what bargaining unit means?
That's union, and I don't think we
Yeah.
have that here.
I think it's applicable to Virginia.
It's not
No,
applicable to Virginia.
not at all.
I don't think.
I don't even think in West Virginia. I don't think
Yeah, I don't
any of the
either.
surrounding
West
areas.
Virginia's changing, they haven't pushed through right to work yet, but it's going to be through in West Virginia.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, so it won't be, you won't have that around here.
Yeah.
If you do any business in DC, that is
Oh, yeah,
a
there is a
bargaining unit
that-
in DC.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
'cause they have a union.
it's union-based, so that's when you're gonna work with a union to get what their wages are and what their bargaining platform has become.
It's awesome. Okay. This is probably part of OSHA, safe premises. Stand start.
Stand start. I don't-
These are stand start.
I don't know what you wanted to talk about here. Exactly. In terms of business operations, I'm thinking it's just having a safe facility and making sure that you have repaired anything or inspected anything that could be a hazard to your employees.
And if you haven't repaired or inspected, make sure there's proper warning around it, get the yellow tape, whatever you have to do, make sure that there's enough signage so they know. Duty to rescue, I guess if they're dying, you have to save them. I don't know.
I'm not sure what he wanted to talk about here.
Okay.
Do OSHA standards apply if you have under like 15 employees? Like ADA and all of that, it's all still applicable?
Yeah.
Yep, sure does.
Yep. Rico Suave.
Oh, yes, Rico.
Rico Suave.
It's the owner's responsibility to have a safe workplace.
Yes.
If that's your question.
That is.
No matter how many employees?
No matter how many
No matter how
employees.
many
I
employees,
mean,
yeah.
you can't have like saws zipping through and, kind of cutting people's fingers off because you only have 2 employees.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
I mean, it's gotta be,
That would be
it's your
the most
responsibility.
Yeah.
awesome workplace ever.
I'm doing
I've worked there, you don't.
Yeah.
Really? You're standing there and it zips by?
I'm doing a building for a client currently, and I'm managing they bought a building, they need it to be usable for them as office space, and they only have 5 employees, but they still have to go through making sure the parking lot is ADA accessible, they have to have, the building is ADA accessible, none of them are ADA, but they have to have that, because that is the law. So it doesn't matter, even if they had 2, yep, they have to have it, so. So we're going through.
And I think your insurance company would require you to be somewhat compliant on that too, wouldn't they?
No, I mean, from a risk management standpoint, it helps, but it doesn't.
Not from an
OSHA
being insured.
standpoint, no.
Exactly.
Quick question.
Because trust me, the current place that they're in is not ADA, so. Yes.
VDAX told us we did not necessarily have to put in handicap bathroom. Have to put a bathroom in.
That is correct, and I have a member who has that. They bought a building, and it has a bathroom in it, but in order to put a handicap bathroom, they were told not to do it. So.
This is new construction.
It's probably because of the Department of Agriculture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Department of Agriculture, yeah.
It's a different regulation.
Yeah.
It has a different set of
There's-
rules.
Yeah, so go with what you're being told.
Okay.
Okay, so undocumented workers. Do you know anything about them?
Don't take undocumented workers, so I don't really know a lot about them, but.
When you hire someone, aren't you supposed to?
Take all their
sign one?
documentation? Yeah.
Yeah, you have to make
Yes.
sure that they're legal in order to hire them.
Yeah.
So.
And I think this is coming in a lot on using subs, because a lot of times you'll go out and you'll get a sub for something, and they may use undocumented workers, and you want to just know who your subs are. Make sure you have good relationships with whoever your vendors are, and that they're providing you quality employees, because if it's going to reflect poorly on you, you don't want an undocumented worker being the one who causes, somebody to fall from the scaffold. So that's the kind of thing that you got to really be careful with when you're subbing out work, is,
I think as the owner,
in any industry.
You're responsible to make a reasonable effort to find
Yes.
out.
Exactly.
Quote, reasonable effort is a nice legal term meaning.
Yes. I've done everything I can in my power.
Yeah, if they show you a green card, but you find out later it's false,
That's not
fake or
your
something,
problem,
that's
yeah.
not your problem. You've done what you're supposed to do. Okay.
Yeah. I know.
Don't hire undocumented workers.
Yeah, that's the,
That's the new pillow. We'll just keep going.
yeah.
Make sure stuff is in Spanish if you have Spanish employees. I don't know.
Yeah. That's the employer role.
Are they-
Just participate in E-Verify. That way it's easy to catch their social security numbers that are fake.
Mm-hmm.
Well, is that like a state law? 'Cause I know in New York State we had to post everything in Spanish. Like all workmen's, like all forms had to be in Spanish. Is that
Yeah,
a
and you
law
can
in Virginia?
print all that stuff off.
I don't know, that's a state law in Virginia.
But you can get them.
You can
Find that out for you.
Yeah.
Right, so if you do have employees that speak Spanish, just
Then
to
yes.
cover yourself, I would make sure that it's in both.
And this is all talking about E-Verify, and you can utilize E-Verify for all of your employees. It's all electronic. That's how you fill out their forms, and that will help verify whether or not they are.
There's also regulations on the posters that have to be in place at the workplace and all those
Yeah.
kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
And those posters are in Spanish as well.
They are, yeah.
Yeah,
You can get them all
yeah, you can get
in
them
both languages.
in
They're just sent out.
many languages.
They are. Yeah. Do you have a question? Did you want to say something about being in Spanish?
You can get them in French too.
Yeah.
Whatever language.
Whatever language
I
you
don't
want.
know.
Don't know what he was going to talk about here. But basically, no negligence-based lawsuits by employees. And make sure that.
So do your due diligence, make sure that they're not getting here because of something that you overlooked or something that you thought, oh, I'll handle tomorrow.
Especially when it comes to safety, I can't stress that enough. If OSHA requires it, you better have it.
They're supposed to be wearing a back brace, make sure they're wearing their back brace.
If they're supposed to be wearing a harness and they're on a roof,
Make
they
sure
better
they're
not fall
wearing
off the roof because they didn't have a harness on, because you're going to be the one that's sued. And you are absolutely culpable for that.
it. Finish it up? Okay, you told us we had 50 minutes.
Yeah, we're still going, okay?
Okay, OSHA.
OSHA, do
Make
what I
sure
just
you're
said.
OSHA compliant. They can come out, inspect, enforce regulations. They don't have to let you know that they're coming. Most of the time they do.
And there are companies that will go out and help you figure out if you are OSHA compliant or not.
Yeah. Employee privacy rights. You can monitor phone calls, email, website usage, voicemail messages. I don't know if you really want to get that into it, but
If it's your phone, you can do it.
yeah, you're paying them. If they're on your dime, then go for it. Discrimination.
Yeah. Isn't that the problem they're having with the San Bernardino cell phone, that it wasn't actually his cell phone, that it was his employer's cell phone? And that's,
I don't think that it is. I
No.
think that it was,
County gave the permission for it.
Yeah.
But the guy had blocked it.
yeah.
and that,
Yeah,
Or-
yeah, he had put his own passcode into it.
was the employer being responsible in any way for them using their equipment for
That goes back to what we talked about having a manual for your employees. So if
Yeah.
you're going to have, even if you have one employee, you really need to have written procedures and manuals,
Yeah.
because if it becomes a gray area, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
Yeah, the employer's not really responsible for that, but the employer is being kind of put into
That's
the
my
mix
way of
for it.
looking at it.
So in the employee manual, I would say if I gave you an iPhone, you can't change the passcode. It has to be 000 or your birth date or whatever. That way he knows when your birth date is. Discrimination, you can't discriminate. It's pretty easy. Whether young, old, race, sex, whatever, you can't. Just don't do it.
What was the plus 15 employees thing? Is that like
I mean, doesn't that apply?
It applies.
It applies to everybody.
Everybody, I don't know if
Yeah,
there's
I don't
15
know
plus
what,
employees.
maybe he was thinking age was over 15, I don't know, but it does, it applies to everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know these things.
I think that's what differentiates small employers from large employers.
Large employers, yeah.
Yeah.
There's
There are
differing
different
rules.
set of rules.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm sure that's what he's.
I'm sure that's,
Goes into the insurance things and everything, under a certain number, you don't, so everything, so you really need to just look at those rules. But that's again why you have that team, that lawyer, or an accountant, or bookkeeper, those kind of people around you, because it's not your job to be the expert in all these things. It's your job to have the people that are able to feed you that information, or somebody that you can go to. So that's the more important piece. I think that what this is all about is making you aware of this, and making sure that, say, you know, you don't need to know everything about everything about your business, but you need to know people that do know.
You need to have a good foundation, so when you do hire those people to help you out, you know whether it's good advice or bad advice. Good management practices usually win. Good record keeping is good management. Document everything. Document, document, document. We can't say that enough. Reasonable continuous carrying management. Be relatable. Have the open door policy. Be that person that, you know, you don't have to let them cry on your shoulder, which I've had people do that. But just don't be that boss that everybody hates too. Prompt professional responses. Discovery. If something happens, address it. Don't wait a day. I mean, even if you're going to investigate it, just let somebody know, hey, we're going to investigate it. We're going to look into it. Don't leave them hanging. Obvious commitments to diversity, transparency. Whatever you do, just try to be as transparent with the employee, especially if the employee has a complaint. Just let them know that you are doing something. Make them feel a little bit better about that. Because you don't want a disgruntled employee. You don't want an employee who feels that you don't have their back, especially depending what they're doing for you, or if they're out in the public. You got to be careful of that. Failure, lack of. No, that's all right.
yeah.
Anyway. Okay. Just be good people. Discipline, document, warn, suspend, terminate. Again, document.
On all
If
of
you
those.
verbal warning or written warning, whatever it is, make sure they're signing it. If you have to suspend them, suspend them. I'm not.
And make them sign it.
And then go ahead and terminate. The one thing I want to say about this is you guys, bosses have to be with every single employee, you have to make sure your policies are the same. I know some employees are going to be really close friends, and we just had wine yesterday, so I'm going to give them a break. No. If they break the rule, they break the rule. They have to be disciplined, because if you let one person go, if you terminate somebody else and that goes in front of unemployment and they're like, well, Jan did the same thing, but I guess they're friends, that's going to come back and haunt you. You got to do the same thing for every employee. Again, emotions and business are two separate things. Termination for rules. Make sure you have procedures in place. Understand your options.
Understand your risks and
again,
have the SOP for difficult, dangerous, or high-risk termination. When there's a high-risk termination, the guy that I had to fire that was telling everyone that he was a racist and everything else, he was a guy who came to work with guns in his truck. And I actually reached out to another HR association and said, what do I do? And they said, call the cops, have them in the parking lot when you terminate. So
and they'll come.
They will come, and they will be there in the parking lot. They didn't have to come in. They didn't have to do anything, but they were there in the parking lot. We had 3 people that terminated him, walked him out of the building, and when he walked out, he saw the cops there. So there was nothing that he was going to turn around and come back in the building and do anything wrong. And he didn't. It was a peaceful termination, but you never know. So always be prepared for that what-if scenario.
And if you feel it might happen, just, again, go ahead and call
Be
them.
safe. Better safe than sorry.
Again, unemployment burdens, as long as you're documenting everything, you really don't have to worry about this, because you'll have everything written down. You'll have employee statements, you'll have your statements, you'll have signatures. Unemployment questions. Words are dangerous things. Are you asking me to resign? You can't quit on me. Sorry. I just keep thinking, I can't quit you.
Can't quit me.
I know, I can't quit you. You're fired. Do you want me to quit? Treat it as just be careful of your words used, but make sure that they know that they're terminated. I don't know what here.
This is assumption of risk or waiver liability, full harmless. There's all kinds of agreements that you could have employees sign, or you could sign saying you're holding them harmless, but I would never do any of that without a lawyer involved.
Yeah, make sure, that's why you need a good lawyer in case any of this, and he'll let you know if you need any of this done. Uniform law commissions.
I don't know, we want to talk about, this is way too in-depth, UCCs are way too in-depth to talk about.
We don't know why the UCC is part of this.
But a UCC can be held by your bank, by a partner, by whoever might want to have some piece of you as a guarantee that you're going to pay them whatever it is you owe them. So,
What does it stand for?
Uniform Commercial Code. And you can get a UCC filed on you, a UCC lien filed on you. And so it can be on your building, it can be on your property, it can be on your bank account. It just depends on what it is, and they can file a lien on it, and then you can't sell anything if you don't satisfy that lien. Gives you legal title, or gives that person legal title to your possession. Trying to build you up, not take you down. So bankruptcies and collections, obviously there's collections agencies out there that I talked about the other night at Venture Club in terms of if you have a client that's not paying you, you can go out and get a collection agency to come and help you out and get your money back. But then there's also those that will come after you if you don't pay your bills. So on either side of the coin.
Yeah, same with repossessions, litigation. Secured creditors, mechanics lien, material man's lien. These are the different liens that you can file or can be filed against you.
Again, security interests of UCC filing.
Again, those are the kind of things you want that lawyer involved in. Those are
Exactly.
things that are all
Your lawyer and your accountant.
And that's why you're reaching out to that person who's your partner and having that conversation. You're the one who's going to guide you through that, understanding what is the right direction. Again, you're not an expert at all these pieces, and hopefully you don't touch these pieces very often, but understand that these are the kind of things that can happen, and the lawyer can drive you and help you go in the right direction.
And that's why you have them. You don't need to be an expert in all this stuff. You really don't need to. Let your lawyers and your foundation help you with this stuff. Small business insurance, we don't have to cover this because we already have it covered. Watch out for co-insurance issues.
We're really getting in depth.
Yeah, it's really in depth.
I know. Okay, so let's skip it.
So we're going to skip it and we'll be done.
We're skipping that.
Yeah. Skip that too.
Okay, because I don't even know why that's there. Questions?
Sorry we
skipped most of
we
it.
won it.
But we don't know why he had a lot of those slides there, and we apologize for that.
Yeah, but what we're going to do, and I do again apologize that Professor Wynn wasn't here, but what we're going to try to do is I'd like you to look at each of these slides, and if there's parts and pieces about them that has something to touch you and your business, write them down, send them to Leslie. I think you all have Leslie's email address.
Yeah.
And we will pass them on to John Wynn, who's the professor who was supposed to be here, unfortunately, wasn't here. And we'll have him direct that response to you, because we owe it to you that you have the right answers for these type of things.
Oh, yeah.
But the legal piece is, the finance piece is very, very important, but the legal piece is almost as much, because that's the one that helps you keep your money, all right? So anyway, I appreciate it, girls, thank you.
No problem.
I should say ladies. And again, we filled in here, and there were some parts in there that there was maybe questions that came up. Again, reiterating, bring those questions to us, and I think Leslie's going to be the point person. You all have her email address, and I really encourage you to ask those questions, because we're going to get you the right stuff for you. A couple other things. We have the eval form, which unfortunately has John Wynn's name on it, and so I'd appreciate you fill that out. But one other thing before we leave, I just want to talk about the pitch night, because that's the core and that's the culmination of this whole thing. And I just want to pass it on that I think we gave you this, and I think you still have that, or you got it. But understanding this, one of the things we were talking about, that there will be a if you want to use a PowerPoint, we're going to let that be part of it. There will be a maximum of 5 slides. The first slide must be the business logo, no videos, so that's a critical piece. In a lot of cases, people, maybe you don't want a video, or you don't want a PowerPoint. That's fine too. But what we'll do is ask you for your logo so that we can put that up. Even if you're a startup and you're just getting ready, putting something up on that slide. But those are critical. The visual aids, that we're going to use, the PowerPoints, we can talk about that they're concise, they're clear, there's not a lot of words on them. They're the consensus of what you're trying to get across. Again, also just like the presentation, clear and concise, to the point. Like I said, the business plan, maximum of 12 pages. What, Leslie?
I missed what you said in the very beginning, talking about the business plan, and we really just want to make sure that everybody understands on March 30th, everyone is turning in a business plan. Okay. We just want to make sure that we've covered that.
Maximum of 12 pages.
There's no required format. We have provided you some key points that you want to hit.
I meant like a Word document or PDF.
We would like either Word or PDF. If you're using Mac, PDF, please.
And then for your pitch night presentation, on April 6th, you will be doing a pitch night, and that's when the 5 finalists are going to be chosen. And it's based on that same matrix that we gave you. So 50% of your grade is based on your business plan. And again, on the business plan, that is going to be a summary, not a 20, 30, 40 page. And not only did we list the key components, but this is how it's going to be graded. So read through this carefully, because you'll see where you're going to pick up points. And so those are the higher the points over here, you want to make sure you're picking up on those key areas. And if you have any questions about that, please ask any of us, and we're more than happy to help. Your pitch night is on April 6th, and that's where Dale was talking about. You're going to have 5 slides allowed, and you'll have 5 minutes to present your idea. Everyone's going to do their pitch on April 6th, including our Luray folks. They'll be here in Middletown. Now, for the finalists that are moving on that award night, the 5 finalists, you probably saw it in your email, you're going to be allowed to have a booth there at the event to display your business. That's where you can have video, that's where you can have product samples, that's where you can just really go wild and showcase your business. There are some size dimensions that are in here that were in that email, and it'll let you know how big your booth can be. But that's where the judges, the audience, and everyone's going to actually interact with your product, your business. They can touch, feel, see. But when you get up to do your actual presentation, again, you're going to be limited to your maximum of 5 slides on your PowerPoint. So it's going to be you and your slides.
And if you don't want to use PowerPoint, you don't have
No, it's not required at all.
No, you can just have your company logo behind you. So if you can give us that, but you do not have to use PowerPoint.
And how is the winner chosen? Because I know how you get to the 5 finalists, but it wasn't clear.
The finalist, the 5 finalists is going to be based on the whole point system. And so the final finalist is going to be the same as the pitch. So they're going to actually be, the business plan judges are not going to be present for your pitch night. So they're not going to be scoring that. They're not going to see it. They're not going to be privy to it. So your business plan is going to get you up to the final position. When you go to the final night, it's going to be the same as the pitch grading. And if we haven't given you that already, I promise I will email that to you this week.
And the judges for the business plan are also the judges on the pitch night.
Right.
So
they won't have seen your pitch before.
They won't have seen your pitch, but they will have seen your business plan.
Yeah, this is their business plan.
There was a list of elements to include in the pitch, but not a detailed.
Not the score, and we will get that score out for you, just so you are aware of it in advance, so you want to know how much each is weighed. That's a very great question, Kenny.
Another question.
Yeah.
So in the rubric that you gave out on there, I forgot which section it said, but something about or maybe it was in the pitch night one, and it mentioning risks and challenges. But in the outline and in the rubric, it wasn't listed. So I just wasn't sure where exactly to include that. If it's a criterion in the pitch night, I want to make sure that it's included in the business plan as well. But I just wasn't sure where.
That's a good question, and I'll make sure that's addressed in the pitch rubric that we send you. Thank you, Tammy, for pointing that out.
That's a great piece. Yeah,
Very
absolutely.
good question.
So when we bring our computers, we were to have our slides, it will be easily converted?
What you'll have to do is you'll send us your PowerPoint electronically. It's in there. You'll send to email it to your slides. You can email to me, Because what we'll do is we'll have the order that you all are going in, and we'll have them already queued up. Because we want to avoid any kind of technical issues that you're having to worry about, or switching flash drives back and forth, that kind of thing.
Yeah, we need that all ahead of time. We can't walk in with it and say, oh, here it is, we're going to do. Because we have a very narrow window here, and we want to make sure, and what Leslie's going to do is put them all on one present so we can just go right from one to the other. Because we have to choreograph this pretty tightly.
And we don't want any of you to be facing any.
We don't want any finger hand puppet thing going on.
That wouldn't be fun.
And that includes just emailing her your logos. If you're not doing PowerPoint, but you make sure she has your logo so that when it comes to your turn, you still have your logo in the back.
Logo to you.
Yeah, she's the point person for all the electronic.
For the presentation, your business plans are going to Karen Hill. If you end up sending your stuff one way or the other, we communicate, but
yeah,
it's okay.
Is there a time limit for the presentation? Like
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
So I have another question.
Maximum.
Sorry. So I know that it's not supposed to be a business plan like the example that you gave last time, which was the purpose was to
that's sort of like the real business plan.
But we are trying to get money.
Absolutely,
Right?
but I mean, so you have to get the point across, and you got to do it in 5 minutes. It's somewhere it's like an expanded elevator pitch, if you want to say
She's
that.
talking about
But
the
in
business
the
plan.
financial plan,
wanna see-
we need to indicate what we need the money for, right? So
That's
it's not like an overarching business plan, because I
Right.
want the money for
Who you
a
are,
specific thing.
what you do, why someone needs to buy from you, and what do you need the money for. I mean, that's kind of the core of what that 5 minutes will do.
She's talking about the business plan.
Yeah, business
The pitch.
Plan, not the pitch.
Oh, that's the pitch, I'm sorry.
The handout they handed out tonight, the business plan outline, the financial plan on there, financial plan section, that basically kind of covers it. It should be how much capital is needed, how is it going to be raised. Again, you have 12 pages for it, so the historical financial statements, I don't even think that's really necessary. I mean, if you want to touch on it, fine.
The outline, just keep in mind, that's an example. Okay,
Yeah.
that's not
I just wanna
our,
make sure that,
that's
that
an
I'm being
example
clear
of
in
the key
Tell
points.
us why you want it, what you're gonna use it for.
You know, for 12 pages, you're not going to
What your experience
put
is.
everything in there that you possibly want to put in there.
well, I don't think that I am. I don't think
No,
that could be done.
and-
But I want to
right.
make sure, because,
You just want to make sure you are hitting the keys, and that outline's going to help you.
right,
hit
because
the
this
keys.
doesn't specifically say, like, what exactly do you want because also in
And that's
the,
in C,
for the funds, for the reimbursement process, you have to make sure that the money that you want to, or that you're getting reimbursed for is actually presented in the business plan. So,
Yes.
Is what you're spending the money on going to impact your business with a financial return? Where would you put that?
I would actually put that, but also I would highlight that.
And in the executive summary.
Exactly. In the executive summary, you can state, I want to buy X machine, or I'm gonna buy X inventory. This is my plan, and that's kind of the whole story of the business plan, is you're looking at what you're planning on doing, and part of that is, this is what we've done briefly. This is why when you give me $20, I'll turn it into $200 or $2,000, or whatever that return is. That's kind of the story, is who you are, what you're gonna do with what you have to grow, and what you've done in the past is giving that basis of, I know what I'm doing, or I know my market. So it'll be kind of woven in there, that you'll be saying in your executive summary, this is what I want to do, very briefly, and then as you get into it, you'll say, well, part of my projection is, if I get a cash infusion of $5,000, I'll buy X, and we can use that to increase our sales or our production.
And especially including then like the marketing plan, if I get my t-shirt shooter, which I'm really hoping to get. Anyways, if I get t-shirts, put that in the marketing
I
plan
don't
too.
doing the education components because it's really not germane. But it just, to me, what this doesn't say is, does it explicitly have to be in one portion, or does it just
It can be
need to
overall. It should be overall.
Well, I mean, so everyone is supposed to say what they would, in every section, what they're going to use $5,000.
No,
I mean,
these
it should be,
will be woven into it. So
Okay.
like if you do marketing, you'll say
but it should be included in one,
in one context or another.
Okay.
So make sure, so say again, I need a t-shirt through this, which I will do. In my marketing, that's gonna help my marketing because I'll be able to send my t-shirt products, throughout the world. I'll just attach it to my Mini Cooper, and as I drive, I'm gonna shoot them off. Be part of my financials, because I get this and I can up my marketing, my financials will look, just kind of interweave it as much as you can.
Okay.
I should totally apply for the 5,000 MT2.
Any other questions?
Again, we're gonna go over again the pitch piece, so we're gonna have practice on it. We're going to have, talking about getting the message down into a concise point that tells your story. And I'm not just pointing at everybody, but trying to, because everyone's gonna look at it a little bit, unique, but because it has to fit what you're looking for, why you're doing it, and then, sell, it's a sales pitch, it's selling it. I'm a great vet. Here's what I need it for, and here's how I'm going to make a bunch of
And
money.
it's almost like when you're online dating, because these people.
I've never done that. I'm 71 years old.
You know what? I dated myself with yellow books and face and backseat. So these are your judges. First time meeting you, seeing how you are, seeing what you're doing, seeing what you'd like to do. So like answering those 100 questions that